Hello again, Chrissy here at A Little Glam, A Lot of Mom. Today is a follow-up to two videos. First, it's the video before last when I shared our homeschool updates and what we're up to and plans and intentions for 2023. In that video, I shared that we're jumping into early American history, but I did leave out our focus for the month of February because I wanted to make a separate video for our focus on Black History Month. And last year's video, in honor of Black History, I shared a video of our book resources for young kids and teens. In that video, I also shared some insights on my approach to teaching my children the hard but necessary topics of Black American history. Last year, my heart was centered on gently approaching and introducing the topic of enslavement to my younger children by reading many books and stories of enslaved people. And that didn't stop last year or isn't confined to a month. We continue to read, listen, and learn. So this year, we are gently approaching the civil rights movement through this wonderful guide by HearthMagic, Reaching for the Stars, inspired by the Hidden Figures, a journey through civil rights. It touches on women's rights and the space race. I know that Amber at HearthMagic has been working on this guide, and she's a homeschooler herself, and so her family has been immersed within this guide for over a year. So congratulations, Amber, and thank you for sharing your heart with us. So most of you may know that I've been sharing and utilizing Amber's literature guides for goodness about 3 to 4 years now. All of the HearthMagic guides have been such a treasure to our homeschool, but especially these literature guides. It's been such a thrill just to watch them unfold and now expanding to an older student age group and skill. This guide is recommended for ages 9 to 14 by Amber, but you'll see as I dig deep in here how I'm using it with all of my elementary aged kids, and it's gentle approach, yet there is room to dive deeper and grow. There's 50 plus pages of lesson plans, hands-on activities, and printables to guide you through the chapter book, Hidden Figures. So the young reader is for ages 8 through 12. The author of the young reader is also the same author of Hidden Figures, the picture book. So I did pick up both. I figured Bella and I can read out loud the young reader, and of course the younger two siblings can stick around and listen if they wanted to, but geared more for them, and they'll probably enjoy most the picture book, Hidden Figures, the true story of 4 Black women and the space race. So a lot of her guides include this template, a little bit of information on using main lesson books, just similar to a journal, reading aloud and using audio recordings, how to use the films, character journaling. That is our favorite component when it comes to literature guides, and we even character journal outside of literature guide. And then there's always experiencing nature alongside the book. I'm loving Amber's ideas here of experiencing nature alongside the book. It says, instead of regular nature walks, take some nighttime star walks as a family. Look for patterns, rations, and mathematics in nature. Learn about the constellations that are in the night sky where you live. Visit the planetarium. Create math games and activities that you can play in nature. Hidden Figures Young Readers Edition, and that is what this guide is inspired by, and there is information on the author. On the next page, you'll find an introduction to this guide along with the resource recommendations that are required and recommended through the guide. All right, finally, we're getting into some short biographies about each woman in this story of Hidden Figures. Now, I want to show you something neat that is new in her guide, and she has these scan codes or these barcodes that you just pull up to your phone, and it'll take you to a link. For example, this one is a link to the NASA website where you're going to find more biography information on each of these women, and you don't have to worry about clicking a faulty link. Again, Amber has already done that research for you. Timeline is always such fun and relatable, or I should say appropriate work when learning about history. So the kids and I did study about Katherine Johnson, I would say 2 winters ago, and in that I did present them an introduction to the space race, and we did some timeline cards, I believe it was, and that was through the Good and the Beautiful's Science Space Unit. And at that time, we utilized this resource, Smithsonian Timeline Science Space Exploration. And in here, there is information on the beginning of the space race and a large pull-out poster type of timeline itself. Again, we had a main lesson block on space, and in that we did study about the life of Katherine Johnson. We used this book, Counting on Katherine. We mostly focused on how she saved Apollo 13. I have an entire video on that, and my children were a lot younger back then, and so that might be interesting for those of you who have younger elementary age children to watch that video, maybe gather some ideas if you did want to do a very gentle introduction to this study. So I'm going to link that in a card up here and in the description box down below. Timelines, always such a fun element to learning about history. Then we move on to geography and the civil rights movement. Again, here is a scan code, and this one takes you to U.S. national parks. And so as a prompt here, it also says create your own labeled United States map that includes significant events and locations in U.S. history from the civil rights movement, the space race, and the lives of the women in Hidden Figures. And so there is a worksheet for that. We love map work. I'm so excited that this is included. There are question, discussion, and writing prompts. Here are for chapters 1 through 6 and diving deeper into segregation. Creating a propaganda poster to inspire women to join the workforce, and a small excerpt on these special recruitment campaigns during World War II. Amber recommends reading the book Rosa by Nikki Giovanni as an introduction to the civil rights movement. We'll be pulling up the book as a read aloud on YouTube because we don't own it, and I also have several other resources on Rosa Parks we could utilize. But I love the recommendations given by Amber here for different age groups. So for a child 5 to 8, there's copy work of a powerful quote from the book. Ages 7 to 10, writing a summary of how Rosa's actions impacted the Montgomery bus boycott. And ages 11 and up, watching a crash course, U.S. history Montgomery bus boycott. And there's a barcode scanner to link you to that free YouTube video. There's a math block in this guide, inspired by Dorothy, who was a teacher, and her math approach in living math by making it relatable to everyday life for her students using topics like rationing and budgeting. So there are math word problems and further discussion questions on war rations. How neat is that? Here, we deep dive into women's history. The students are encouraged to create a book of biographies about powerful and amazing Black women in history, including the women mentioned in Hidden Figures. So we have a few resources here to inspire our work. 101 Awesome Women Who Changed Our World by Julia Adams. I highly, highly recommend Little Leaders. We have bold women in Black history. I've tapped off many pages of women who made history in the civil rights movement and World War II eras. These biographies have just enough info for the young ones, a good starting point for introductions to women in history, and allowing room for deeper dives. One woman that will be in our book is Mae Jemison. It's just appropriate to reread and relearn about the first African-American woman astronaut. We have this book, Mae Among the Stars, which used to be one of Bella's favorite books a few years back. This book is mostly about her childhood experiences in a time where Black women were encouraged to pursue careers in the nurse or education fields, and that fueled her passion and calling for space. I've also been holding on to this book for a while, and it's appropriate for now. It's a kid's book about feminism, not to be confused with a message about being a feminist. There's no male gender bashing in this book, and that's super important to us. A book about feminism with a powerful word for both girls and boys. All right, let's move on. The Tuskegee Airmen. I'm looking forward to taking a deeper dive into this part of American and military history. And this barcode scanner is a link to a clip on YouTube on the red-tailed angels. We're referencing to Little Legends, exceptional men in Black history, to read who's referred to as the father of the Tuskegee Airmen, John Robinson. Here's a fun section on breaking the sound barrier. Students are encouraged to learn about the goal of breaking the sound barrier and how this event helped the United States further along in the space race. Immersive learning here, as the students are encouraged to put on a show to entertain family or friends, just as the USO does in providing entertainment to U.S. soldiers. As a military family, we've attended many USO shows and functions, and it's just so wonderful when those organic connections happen. Throughout the guide, there are worksheets on space science, and we'll see more of these toward the end of the guide too. Career report in the STEM field. So speaking of organic connections that happen when life and learning become one, this week we are attending a STEM career fair. It's called WISE, and it stands for Women in Space and Engineering, being hosted by NASA and the U.S. Space Force. So we'll have hands-on experiences and activities for this career report. Women in NASA today. Because of the trailblazers in Hidden Figures, this barcode scanner directs us to a Women in NASA page on the NASA website. We can read about a or several women and answer these prompt questions. March, Book 1 by John Lewis, is a recommended reader to dive deeper for students ages 10 to up. There are prompt questions and this fun project with graphic narratives about a significant event in civil rights history and using the comic book style to illustrate a scene that is emotionally and visually impactful. I decided to skip over this book and this part since it's recommended for ages 10 and up, but we look forward to coming back to it in the years ahead. And I do appreciate that this guide is the gentle introduction to the civil rights movement that I've personally been looking for, but there's so much room to dig deeper and grow for older students. In Part 3, Chapters 12 to 17, we read more about Katherine Johnson, her natural mathematical talents, work ethic, and her family life, the passing of her husband, and how she taught her daughters the importance of working hard. In light of her family life and her daughter's responsibilities of housework and preparing meals, there's a recipe for fish and grits inspired by the Florida Avenue Grill that fed civil rights activists in Washington, D.C. A solar oven project, which is basically like a rites of passage, right? The kids are going to be over the moon, pun intended, about that project. A zodiac constellation project, and this is just awesome. Although we will probably skip past it this year anyway and come back to it when the kids are older. Binary code. Learn about this computer language and seeing and receiving messages through binary code with this crash course linked in the barcode scanner. American presidential history with Kennedy and how his seat in office impacted the space race. Through this link, we will be watching Kennedy's speech when he called for America to send astronauts to the moon. Another project in this one is creating a newspaper article using some examples of significant newspaper and magazine covers during the time of the space race. Amber included a spacesuit labeling worksheet to learn about the life-sustaining features that make up a spacesuit. We've studied a spacesuit in the past, but it'll be fun to revisit and learn more about it. While we're here, we're going to reread Ron's Big Mission about astronaut Ron McNair, one of the astronauts who lost his life in the Challenger shuttle in '86. This book is a fictionalized account of a real incident in Ron's childhood, written based on several interviews of Ron's mother and others. In the segregated world of South Carolina in the 1950s, Ron obtaining his own library card is not just a small rite of passage, but a young man's courage. There's a section in this guide dedicated to learning about Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Through this barcode scanner, we will be watching his speech and following discussions and the prompts respective to each student's age. Ages 5 through 8 is as simple as the coloring page provided. Ages 7 through 10, creating your own illustration or character journaling. The Who Was readers recommended for ages 11 and up, and Selma the movie, which is rated PG-13, recommended as a movie watch for ages 13 and up. Hosting a moon landing party. Yes, please. Any reason or occasion to celebrate. Included are menu ideas, recipes, decorations, like creating a garland of crocheted stars, tutorial included. There's labeling a moon phase activity and a printable to create a moon phase banner. Amber includes chapter book recommendations about the civil rights era for older children and mentions her favorite books about space and night sky. Vocabulary words. You know how much we love vocabulary word work. We'll be copying these down in our main lesson book and practice using them. And here Amber provides a code to see NASA-affiliated museums in the country. We recently took a trip to NASA, so we likely won't be doing that again for a few years, but who knows where else we can find to explore on the Space Coast. And finally, towards the end of the guide, you'll find several space-related printables. All right, and that is a complete flip through of Reaching for the Stars, inspired by Hidden Figures guide by HearthMagic. I hope that through this very detailed and in-depth flip through, you can see why these literature guides are such a treasure to us. What I love most about them is that they truly are a whole child approach. Moving on to a few other resources we'll be utilizing outside of the guide. I picked up this as a shared reader for Bella and I because of a recommendation from a good friend, Stella by Starlight by Sharon M. Draper, and it reads, Stella lives in the segregated South in Bumblebee, North Carolina, to be exact about it. Some stores she can go into, some stores she can't. Some folks are right pleasant, others are a lot less. To Stella, it sort of evens out, and heck, the Klan hasn't bothered them for years. But one late night, later than she should ever be up, much less wandering around outside, Stella and her little brother see something they're never supposed to see. Something that is the first flicker of change to come. So last year we did a deep dive into George Washington Carver, African-American agriculture scientist and inventor, to kick off a rabbit trail of naturalists in history. This year, since we're already in the middle of a year-long art study, I thought it would be awesome to learn about two artists in Black history. I picked up A Splash of Red, The Life and Art of Horace Pippin by Jen Bryant. Horace Pippin was a self-taught American artist who painted scenes inspired by his service in World War I, biblical subjects, and the U.S. history of slavery and racial segregation. I also have Ablaze with Color, a story of painter Alma Thomas by Jeannie Walker Harvey. She grew up in a time of racial injustices. Despite that, Alma shared her passion for art by teaching children and becoming the first Black woman to have a solo exhibition at the Whitney Museum in NYC for the White House collection. Her artwork was inspired by nature and space travel. And of course, we will create art pieces inspired by these two extraordinary artists in Black history. Finally, for my teens and myself, again recommended by a friend, I picked up this book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I'm already somewhat familiar with the Lacks family story in doing some research, but I can't possibly put this incredible story into my own words, so here's the synopsis. Her name was Henrietta Lacks, but scientists know her as Gila. She was a poor Black tobacco farmer whose cells, taken without her knowledge in 1951, became one of the most important tools in medicine, vital for developing the polio vaccine, cloning, gene mapping, and more. Henrietta's cells have been bought and sold by the millions, yet she remains virtually unknown, and her family can't afford health insurance. This phenomenal New York Times bestseller tells a riveting story of the collision between ethics, race, and medicine, of scientific discovery and faith healing, and of a daughter consumed with questions about the mother she never knew. To go with it, I picked up this literature guide by Spark Notes. I thought we could just breeze through it together. It's optional for my teens to do the written work. The goal here is to learn her name and to learn this family story. It's an incredible one. Included in the guide is a complete plot and summary analysis, key facts about the work of the author, who plays a major role in the book, an analysis of major characters, themes, motifs, and symbols, an explanation of important quotations, authors' historical questions, suggested essay topics, and a 25-question review. I want to end with this. Black History Month in our home is not treated as a remembrance. It's a time of tribute and awareness, yes. However, don't be mistaken that it is or should be confined to a month, because Black history is American history. It's our history, and we need to understand the priority that it is that we teach our children the entirety of our history, because it impacts how they see people of all color and race. If we love our children, if we love our country, we must learn it and teach it.